All right, welcome. I am now going to just get this casting on the Facebook page and then get us rolling so that we can have it recorded. So prepping for your first triathlon, and let's go here. How's the morning been so far, or the day been?
Not bad, mate. At work.
Pretty good?
Work's hectic, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice little break.
That's all right.
How's our prep going so far?
Yeah, I mean, okay. If the weather would clear up, I could maybe learn how to ride a bike. That'd be good.
Well, there's still stuff you can do on the stationary bike just for general fitness and some stuff I'm going to talk you through now. So we'll get into it.
I'm more scared of being on the road and the traffic and people around me, and the wobbliness and,
Yeah, no, that makes sense. All right, we got Alberto, we got Steve, we got Susan. We are going to get started. Anyone who would like to join along the way, welcome, welcome, welcome. Guys, if you're watching this on the recording or watching it from the stream on Facebook, I'd ask you to like or comment so that it gets noticed by the rest of our community, and we can share the knowledge as we prepare for our first triathlon. And for anyone that is thinking about having a secondary goal, perhaps to the weight loss challenge, this is something I'm super excited about. I did my first triathlon coming up to about 12 months ago, and it was at a time when I had been through the first round of COVID, and I was sort of needing something to reinvigorate the training goals, and it's something that I absolutely love and I've become very passionate about. So doing this is the first time I've presented on this sort of stuff. It's something I'm really interested in. So guys, thank you for coming in and being able to share and do what I love. Guys, if you've got questions along the way, then please ask, because it's basically to help you guys to prepare, and maybe questions you've got that I might not cover. So ask away. Basically, guys, just a bit of triathlon history. Thought you might be interested. It's actually a super young sport. So I remember I was out for dinner. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear Giuseppe in the background? Nah, cool. I was out for dinner and I was talking about triathlons, and for me, doing sports, I get very competitive, and there's like all these funny sports around, and like CrossFit and this stuff, and I find it hard to take a sport seriously unless it's some sort of like Olympic sport. I don't know, I did track and field. It's got to be on the world stage. And so I was quizzing my my stepmom Danella on the history of triathlon. So I decided I'd do a little bit of research, but basically it only came around the 1970s, and it came around as an alternative to running, just track training, because I think the rigors of that sport and the injuries that it could, bring around, they looked at bringing in things to balance that sport, so you could have these, the swimming and the bike. The first event was the 10K run, 8-kilometer cycle and 500-meter swim, and then it built and started to get a bit of recognition through the world. In 1989, it first featured on the world stage at the World Champs in France, and that was what we now call the Olympic distance. So 1,500-meter swim, 40-kilometer cycle, 10-kilometer run, which is the longer distance one that will be coming up in Wollongong. And that's the official Olympic distance now. Going to the world circuit, 1991, 12 races contested in 9 different countries. So it started to build. And then the Olympic debut in our hometown of Sydney back in 2000. So we helped debut the sports at the Olympic level. So I was pretty young. I didn't remember that featuring, but it's pretty cool. And now it's obviously as part of the Olympics at Olympic distance. So a little bit of history there for you to get things started. But for me, I always like taking part in a sport that features on the world stage. So for me, it resonates, and you guys might be interested. Look, as it's evolved over the years, there are a multitude of distances, and coming up at Wollongong, all these distances will feature up until the Standard Olympic. So this one here in the middle, the Standard Olympic, is what you see at the Olympics, but then there's shorter forms and then longer forms. So you got your super sprint, which is a 200-meter swim, a 10-kilometer bike, and a 2K run or walk. So I know we've got a couple of relay teams. We've got Dawn, Glenda, and Cindy doing that as a relay on the 24th of April, which will be super exciting. And we've also got Arby, Francini, and I'm going to join them in the super sprint as well. So we've got 2 relays, and I think we've got a couple of clients. Susan, which distance are you doing?
Yeah, that one.
The super sprint? Nice one. So there is actually one even shorter than that. It's called Try. But super sprint is definitely the way to go if you're keen. So that's a nice little, very achievable one to dip the toe in the water, so to speak. Then you got your sprint distance. So sprint distance, yes, it's half the distance of the standard 750 swim, 20-kilometer bike, 5-kilometer run. But there are people that actually like specialize at this distance, and it's actually for look, it's definitely shorter, but it is actually quite a different energy system. You can get away with different nutrition, sort of more explosive movement, and it's very much a short, sharp intensity one. I believe Alberto, you're doing this one, right? And Steve, I think you're doing this distance.
The sprint, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, I am.
Beautiful. So that's the one I opened up with, and I absolutely loved it. So yeah, you can, if you're new to this kind of longer endurance type events, then it's a great one to start with. Obviously, you get your Standard Olympic, and then we get into some bigger ones. So the half Ironman and the full Ironman. So Ironman's actually the name of the event company. So it's like the official term, like, so full Ironman is a 3.8 kilometer swim, 180 kilometer bike, and a 42K run. So it's huge. That's a full marathon. The World Champs event here is in Kona in Hawaii. So it's the big event. And this is kind of like a 10-hour event. It's huge. And then the half Ironman 70.3, so 70.3 miles, is just literally half the distance of the full Ironman. You'll see this distance event at other places, and it's just like Huskerson. They call Big Husky. It's just not half. It's not called half Ironman 70.3 because that's like the brand name or the name of the company. But it is the same distance. Okay, these ones more top end, so like 4, 5, 6 hours for this, and the half Ironman. But this is where it starts really getting into that aerobic energy system, and you really, you need a fair bit of training for this sort of stuff. It's definitely achievable if you're kind of ticking away at the different levels, and you're approaching your training programs correctly. But distances for all, you can do it as relays. Other ones that feature duathlon. So a duathlon is a bike and run, and then an aqua bike is a swim and bike. So if your knees are gone, you can't run, you can do the swim bike, which is pretty cool. Dad's doing that, Quinton Freeman, on the 24th of April. So I'll be cheering for him as well. Alrighty, next part, guys, I'm going to go into the programming, but I wanted to talk about the different disciplines, because I've kind of framed this more around race day and just basic things to think about when you get to the day. If you guys want to know more specific on prepping and program for each leg, I'm going to go into a bit of that, but not a huge amount of detail, just because we won't have the time to go through it. But basically with the swim, guys, famous quote from Rachel Craig, one of our clients here: you do not win a triathlon in the swim. Okay. So for me, and especially in my first triathlon, I was so nervous. I get super nervous for this stuff. I still do, which I think it's completely normal. I like to use the swim just to relax in and go at my own pace. I had a few little cues that I would think about, just to keep focus, keep my focus on my technique. So for me, it was relaxing my hands as I entered my hands into the water. And every time my mind would start going off to other places and worrying about, you know, all the people around me, or if I'm going too fast or slow, I just go back to my relaxed hands. And it was one little thing to keep me in the zone and stay relaxed, okay? You still got the bike, you still got the run, you still got a lot of race, and you don't want to burn too many matches or burn out at the swim, okay? One tip, definitely, you can start in big waves. So you just want to let the herd go and go at your own pace. Don't worry about the people if they're all scrambling and all that at the start. Just let them go off to the right, go to the left, just go at your own pace. Nothing worse. I have made the mistake of a race recently where I was like all pumped up, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna like really fight it out at the start and like go hard, and I was gassed. Like, it was really bad idea. My bike and my run were terrible just because I went way too hard in the swim. So it was a lesson I've learned. Don't make that mistake. If you do, it's completely normal too. Just slow it down, take your time. One thing here as well, when you're training for the swim, I do all my training in the pools, but I also do a bit in the open water, whether it's down at Clovelly or like a bay. I'm not a massive fan of swimming the big ocean. Just don't. It gives me massive anxiety, but I'm happy to race there. But the skill really is being able to, like, sighting. So looking up at a point when you don't have a black line, having the skill to keep swimming straight. Okay, so you want to practice, even if you are in the pool, on every third or so stroke to look up to see where you're going. So you can make sure that you're going straight. You don't need to be swimming in the ocean the whole time, but if you've got the skill to sight that you're still going straight, and then correct yourself, because it's very different to just following a black line. And the last point I put here is wetsuit or not. If you're planning on doing more triathlons, definitely worth the investment and you want to go fast. Wetsuit helps a lot with buoyancy. So that will just help you move so much faster. It's like wearing floaties. It's crazy. Even if you just bought the shorts, because what it does is it helps to lift your hips and give you a much better swimming position. You'll swim much faster and you'll cruise through the water. A lot of people swim their heads here and their hips quite sunk down. Okay, there's a lot of things you can do to correct that in your swim technique, but the wetsuit will help lift your hips and you swim with so much more power and speed through the water. If the water temperatures are too high, you can't wear a wetsuit, but the temperatures have to be above 24 degrees. And every single triathlon I have done in between the months of from November to April in New South Wales have been wetsuit optional, which means you're allowed to wear the wetsuit, okay? The reason they say wetsuit optional is because at some places, it's actually compulsory to wear a wetsuit in like Europe and the UK, because the water is so cold that it would be dangerous if you didn't wear a wetsuit. If you do want to get a wetsuit, I would recommend, there's a shop in the city called Fast Gear. They've got really entry level ones to really high level ones. Totally your call, but even if you just got the shorts, really much cheaper, it would help. And if it's something you do during the winter, you definitely want to have a wetsuit. It's freezing. You won't last more than 30 minutes or an hour. If I do a non-wetsuit swim in the winter, I'm freezing. It takes me all day to warm up. Those would be the main things in the swim, guys. Have you got questions on anything there that I've mentioned? Anyone? Easy peasy. Let's move on to the cycle. So the bike, hopefully your bike's not looking like this. Make sure that you have a helmet. Make sure that you have water. Make sure that you've got fuel. The bike it's the biggest portion of the triathlon, and this is actually where, if you're going to be rehydrating, refueling, you want to do it on the bike. You can't do it in the swim, and you want to fuel up during the bike because it'll prevent getting too many gastrointestinal like stitches and stuff from trying to eat and drink while you're running. So on the bike is where you do it. Okay, with the bike, my tip here is to try and maintain as a consistent speed as possible and a faster cadence. So what I mean by a faster cadence is the rate at which you're pedaling is fast. Rather than big, slow, powerful, grinding gears, you want a slightly less powerful, faster cadence. Okay, the reason for that is you want your body and neuromuscular system primed so that when you jump off the bike and start running, your feet are moving fast. Because when you're running, it's all about cadence and lots of short little strides. And if you can get that on the bike, you're going to transfer that into your run really well. So on my first triathlon I did in Wollongong, I didn't really care about the effort or the power I was pushing. I didn't even have a computer on my bike. I didn't know how fast I was going. All I thought about was getting my feet going really fast. I still wanted to feel the resistance, but I wanted that fast cadence. Then when I got off the bike, my legs were moving. I felt amazing off the bike. It's actually, I've run the fastest runs I've run have been off the bike. But that's because I was making sure I was cycling at the correct cadence rather than these like really sore lactic heavy legs. Okay, we'll talk about brick sessions in a moment. It is important to practice that, but cadence is key, I'd say, on the bike. What you'll notice with most of the triathlon courses, guys, they're quite flat. They try and design them so there's not too many hills. So look, I wouldn't, if you're training for, you know, an event, you don't necessarily need to, you know, program in really like lots of hill session. That will help strength, that's fine, but they tend to be flatter. The last point there, it's just time, yeah, to fuel up at the start of the ride, leave enough time before the run. So like, it depends how long your event is, but to give you perspective, I try and get through all my fluids and any sort of gels or snacks I'm eating a good 20 minutes before I start running. It just allows the digestion of that sort of stuff to get through so that I'm fueled up for my run, and then my running, I'm just topping up. But I'll go more into nutrition in just a sec. The run, guys, this is where you bring it home. For me, it's like, you know, you can be a bit more fatigued here aerobically, and it can be that point where if the race is getting a bit harder, you can mentally sort of float off again. So for me, I try and think about one or two technical focuses to bring my mind back to, so it keeps me moving fast. For me on the run, my favorite one is flossing the bottom teeth. So it's my hands, because when I fatigue, you can often find myself running across like this, and it ruins your whole running gait. You're putting power side to side rather than straight ahead. So for me, I have my hands up here, and I'm just imagining like I'm flossing my bottom teeth so that I'm not running across like this. Okay, that's one that works for me. Some people like to think of a slightly forward pelvis tilt. It might be, you know, fast feet for cadence. You'll work out what it is for you, but it's a nice one to think about when you're training leading up to the event as well, so that your mind automatically goes there when it comes to race day. On the run, guys, for the first portion, I'd say, you know, if you're doing, you know, a 5 or 10K run, the first kilometer, even, you know, if you're doing a super sprint, the first, you know, 500 to a kilometer, just let your legs ease off the bike. Don't worry so much about pace. Just let the legs recover from the bike and cruise into it. And then you can start building into that race pace cadence. Okay. If you do use a Garmin and you know what your race pace is, that's amazing. So you can start to target a pace or a cadence. So cadence again, small, short, fast little strides. And if you've been keeping that cadence from the bike, you can transfer that into the run and keep it moving fast. Okay. So that's with the run. I just like to think cadence and then a couple of things. And then I'd go through topping up on water and Powerades. They've got heaps of stations come race day. Now with programming, guys, now this is probably something that you haven't looked much at. I've just drawn it up into two, like a basic and an advanced way to look at it. If it's your first one, then on my first one, all I cared about was just being comfortable with each discipline. So for me, it was making sure that I was getting 1 or 2 swims in a week, 1 or 2 runs in a week, and 1 or 2 cycles in a week. That's absolutely fine. I think it's just more of a comfortability thing. On the shorter distances, they're very achievable. Well, I mean, it depends, you know, on your own comfortability as well, but just getting that routine in so that you're comfortable with that and then putting it together. Okay, so 1 to 2 sessions of each discipline is amazing. 2 strength sessions, that's super important. I'll go into the reasons why you want to focus on strength training, and then making sure you do set aside time for stretching and recovery, because it is a new stress on the body, and we do want to make sure that we're recovering so we've got the capacity to keep going. If you're getting like, okay, I want to do a bigger distance, I want to get faster, I'm really like keen to do this. When you're looking at more advanced programs, and you can spend like heaps of time looking at this, and you're amending it, you're changing every week. Can I just ask someone? He's got a little background noise.
Sorry, are you the gentleman that has to ring about your wife?
Sorry, guys. I might just ask someone to mute. Okay, I've got everyone muted. Advanced.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, advanced. So I like to, you do a time audit, right? So say you've got 10 hours of exercise to do in a week that you can fit in, which is huge. It might be 5 hours, whatever it is. And then the first thing is you'd split the percentage of each discipline by the total time it represents in the race, okay? So to give, like if you have a goal, like, and you want to do the Olympic distance in 2 hours, and you know that the swim, or an hour or 30 minutes, whatever it is, and the swim's going to take 20 minutes or 30 minutes. You can say, okay, that takes up 15% of the race, the bike 55%, and the run 30%. That's approximately, I reckon, what you'd be looking at. Swim 15%, bike 55%, run 30%. And then you go, okay, cool. So I've got 10 hours. So that means I've got 15% of that 10 hours towards swimming in a week, 55% towards cycling in a week, and 30% towards running in a week. That's one way to do it, okay? Because you're just allocating off by the representation of that leg in the event, okay? Then what you do, if you have something that's very weak, like you can't swim to save yourself, and you're actually a really good cyclist and runner, well, then you can skew it towards the swim, all right? So you'd keep the bike and run, like you take time from the bike and run relative to those amounts, and then you shift it to swim, okay? That's basically what I did. So I had more time swimming, even though it's a lower representation of the event. It actually took up more time than it should have because I didn't feel comfortable. And I think a lot of people like often say that. So that's like one way to do it. So you could skew it towards your weaknesses. Bike in general does take a huge amount more. So this is why I sort of said advanced, because if you're looking to go faster, like you can like cut away the biggest change on something like assuming you're equally good at all of them, then the biggest improvement you could probably make is on that bike. 2 strength sessions, if you can get in 2 strength sessions with some of this volume, that's amazing as well. And then obviously stretching and recovery. Now, just for you guys to understand, with strength training, the reason it's really important to maintain this, and this is something I've struggled with because I'm doing a lot of cardio with my triathlon training, but the strength training is so important to be able to withstand higher training volumes. My volumes are getting up to like 14, 15 hours a week. And if I'm not still doing strength training, my body is going to break down and I'm going to get injured. So it's giving me a capacity. It's like my structural capacity so that I can actually keep doing this amount of training. It helps to avoid injury for that reason. And it also works on any mechanical weaknesses so that you can avoid injury. So if I'm running or cycling, like I'm cycling you know, if you're cycling 6-7 hours a week and you're in, you know, you've got a weakness on your left knee, for example, then your technique might be off, and then over time that really compounds and you get like a sore back, and then you're out and you don't know why. So it can be a lot through muscle weaknesses and muscle balances, a lot of these injuries, and that have come from mechanical, like you're cycling, you're running, you're swimming incorrectly because you're just not strong enough in certain positions. And then I guess on the flip side, being stronger and more mechanically efficient, you can actually move a lot faster at less effort. Okay, so if they look at athletes, the ones that do have a better strength program, the ones that aren't doing any strength, they're going much faster just because they're mechanically so much more efficient. And it's those little things you probably, if you just looked at two people cycling or running, wouldn't see a huge difference, but over a long period of time, the difference in speeds and times is huge. So this is it is long distance events or longer distance events. So those little changes can really compound and make a big difference. Okay, but that's really the main focus around strength training. It can be easy to forget sometimes because it's not directly attributable to your performance when you're thinking about a swim, bike or run, but to keep your capacity and keep doing it at like maximum, then super important. Example program. So look, one of the reasons why we do a lot of compound lifts here is because we want to help our clients get functionally ready, whether that's general life or sports. So things like squats, obviously it's a lower leg exercise. You're looking at ankle, knee and hip joint. Lat pull down for swimming. Okay, that's a real obvious one. So that movement through the water when you're pulling down, you're all lats, okay? But push-ups as well, when you're actually swimming across the body, swimming is very much an upper body. You shouldn't be actually kicking too much on those longer distance ones. Lunges, step up, so cycling and running. So unilateral, so when I say unilateral, that's like single leg, so like a step up, a lunge, a single leg glute bridge. These are all really important for balance and symmetry, okay? Then your core exercises. So core is super important so that you're in the right running position, okay? So that your hips are strong even when you're turning left to right in your swim, okay? So you want to have good core strength so that you can actually move from the hip. So this would be things like leg lowers, glute bridges, planks, side planks, all super important. And then any specific exercises that you've got for prehab or rehab because of previous injuries, okay? So those things are things you want to build into your program, okay? It might be things you do, little priming movements you do before your workout or post-workout, okay? Rep ranges, so you want to be going for 2 to 3 sets, and you're looking at 15 to 20 reps just because it's slightly more muscle endurance. You don't need to necessarily be going super heavy here, and at least 2 days a week. You do need that stimulus at least 2 days a week for you just to maintain the strength. Less than that, and you might see it sort of drop off, okay? But look, everyone is slightly different as well. So that's very much an example, big picture overview, something to keep in mind, but your trainers will be able to help you get more specific with that as well. Brick sessions. Anyone heard of a brick session? Anyone know what a brick session is? Nah. So a brick session is, I don't know why it's called a brick session, but it's when you go from bike to run. So it's joining that session and getting your body used to running off the bike, okay? Now here I see the benefit of it. It massively helps the nervous system to run faster after the bike. So that cadence and practices. You don't really need to do swim to bike. That's an easy transition because it warms up your body, but bike to run, boom. You get those heavy legs and running off the bike for the first time. I remember I was doing it. I was like, oh my God, my legs were swollen up with lactic almost. And I felt like I was going to pass out. So it's nice to get used to. And then, yeah, it's just training your neurological systems will just keep moving fast. So those are the brick sessions. And what you're looking at, guys, this as a training session, you'd generally be going like the bike session would be more like an interval session. So like it doesn't need to be like a long ride, right? It could be, say, an hour of intervals, okay? And then the run, you'd start off by just running easy. Don't try and like smash yourself off with the run. Just go 20 to 30 minutes. That'd be a pretty big session, an hour bike and then 20 to 30 minutes running. And then you can build in and get a bit more complex by adding in, you might add a couple of 5-minute higher efforts in the space of a 20-minute run. Okay, but you'd kind of go more intervals and then easy short run. That's how you train for brick. Okay. Transitions. So a bit on transitions, guys. Basically you got T1, so transition 1, and T2, transition 2. First one is the swim to bike. Okay, now when you get out of the swim, you got your goggles, you got your swim cap, you might have a wetsuit on, and you're going to get out of the water, and then you've got to make your way to the transition zone where your bike is set up. Okay, before the race, so about an hour before the race, you'll set your bike up in rows, and it will be aligned with what your number is. So you hook your bike onto this little rack, and then you have a little space where you can put a towel, your cycling shoes or running shoes. You might have cleats. Some people put their cleats on their bike. If you've got cleats, that's awesome. You might just be riding in your sneakers. Energy gels, your helmet, water, and basically all your running gear. You can't have like your bag with your iPhone and stuff there. So it's only racing gear and a towel. Okay. So you're going to be getting out of the water. You're going to be, look, you can run to the bike. I run off my bike, but just easy run. You don't want to burn too many matches here and spike your heart rate from swim to bike. Okay. If you need to catch your breath, just easy walk, and then get there. And then when you get there, you take your time. So this is something that's nice to practice too, like having a little setup, and helmet, shoes, grab your stuff and go. The first thing you always want to do though, when you get to the bike, okay, after you've taken your goggles and stuff off, put your helmet on first and then do everything else. Because if you take your bike and you haven't got your helmet on and it's not done up, they're going to you're in trouble. You got to put your helmet on, number one, and done up, and then do the rest. Okay. You do your bike, you come back out of the bike. You have to re-rack your bike, take your helmet off, take your time if you want. And then you put your running shoes on, you'll get a belt. So like, you know how you got the numbers and normally you pin them on? Well, for the triathlon, you get like a belt that you attach the number to, okay? And you clip it around your waist. So you've got to make sure you've got that on. The really important one for the bike is that you got your helmet on, okay? You'll have stickers to put on your bike, so you don't have to worry about putting in a belt. But the most important thing to remember when you're going to a run is that you put that belt on. If you want to go fast, so it's like kind of advanced, get elastic laces in your shoes. You put your shoes on first and then grab everything else and you hold it and run, and then start putting it on as you're running. So you start getting dressed as you run. I started doing that a couple of triathlons in when I was really competitive and trying to shave off seconds and trying to beat one of my mates. So you can do it any way you want, but look, just, take your time. There's no rush, unless you want to get really competitive. But it's plenty of time to go down there, set up and see what's going on with all the other races before yours. Alrighty. Race day. So what I say on race day and what most people advise is don't try anything new or you haven't done in practice. So if you plan on using energy gels on race day, make sure that you've had at least one energy gel during a run or a cycle. You've had it. You don't want to get there, have an energy gel, and all of a sudden you realize you've have nasty reactions and need to run to the toilet halfway through the race. Weird equipment, like, you know, a new like set of sunglasses that you realize fog up halfway through and you don't know what to do and you can't see anything. Funny gloves or cleats for the first time on race day. Just make sure that race day, and you don't want to be nervous about these things like either, like just do things that you used to. Pre-racing routine, I like this. I use a checklist, then it helps me keep the nerves down also, because like there is like a few elements, right? So you need your swim cap, you need your goggles, you need your earplugs, maybe you need your wetsuit, you need all your numbers, you need your helmet, you need your cycling shoes, you need your running belt. So I do it a couple of days before, maybe the day before, and especially if I'm traveling, I'll have a list of every single thing I need and I'll put that in my bag, and there's one bag with my race bag, and just I'll make sure, I'll look at it a few times, make sure that everything is in there. Aussie butt cream for the cycle. If you're doing a long race, you want anti-chafing cream, because when you're going from swim to bike to run, it stings in the shower afterwards if you're not using that stuff. So all these little things, I just like to use a checklist. I also like to use a checklist on the morning of. So I'll have like a little pre-race routine that's going through, cool, my alarm's going off at this time, having a shower, contact lenses, eating breakfast, stretch, meditation, all these little things. So for me, like having done races in the past, the best way I can control anxiety for myself or pre-race nerves is having something to focus on and doing it, rather than just letting my mind wander and think, oh, what have I got to do? What have I got to do? Like, I like feeling like that sense of control really helps to calm my nerves. And I just feel like everything's under control. But the thing to remember, it is super normal to be nervous. I have to tell myself this every race. Chelsea reminds me of this every race. I remind Chelsea of this every race. And even at the event, they'll say, look, any first timers here, hands up, know you're feeling nervous. The pros, they've done 100 of these, they're also feeling nervous. And as soon as I heard that, actually, my last race, I was like, oh, that feels good. Like, everyone's nervous, even the pros, they get super nervous. And it's actually a really good natural response from your body to anticipate a race. I remember one of the races we did, and I get nervous for the swim. And they called off the swim because the conditions, and we had a run bike run. So they swapped the first swim for a shorter, the swim for a shorter run. And as soon as that happened, I was like, oh, this sense of relief. And I wasn't nervous anymore. But like the race, like it was weird. Like I didn't have that anticipation, that adrenaline. And my cycles and runs were just, it was really like a lackluster race. There was no adrenaline building and you get that energy from it. So I've actually learned that is a real blessing to have that feeling, because it does get you racing really well. And the end of it, you do feel amazing. So it's a very normal thing. It's actually a really good thing to do. A bit on nutrition, guys. This is really important, especially when you're getting to longer distances, or if you do have a goal to do longer distances as well. It's good to get the nutrition down pat. I've just put night before, morning of. The next slide is a bit of like during. The night before, guys, important to have something, and this is for triathlon, swimming, running, any sort of like long distance events, I'd say, something that's easy to digest. Now, I think that's going to be personal to everyone, because you can say, oh, I have these carbs, that carbs, but the main thing is that you're getting good sleep. So what you don't want to have is like having a massive, chicken breast and rice and vegetables, and you're like, oh, I'm so fueled up. And then you're like, oh my God, I can't sleep. My stomach is so full. I'm so bloated. That's not fun. Or you're drinking so much water the night before, then you're up every hour going to the toilet. That's not fun either. It's more important to get a good sleep, and you might be nervous and stuff. You don't want a sore stomach. So look, a balanced light meal, complex carbohydrates. You don't want to have like pizzas and like heavy cheese and fats. That sort of stuff's not going to help. Stuff that you find easy to digest, basically. The morning of, so something you've had before, so you don't want to have this new super breakfast either before. A slightly bigger meal 2 to 3 hours before, with complex carbohydrates, a bit of protein, a little bit of fat. So an example of this could be oats with your nuts, protein, almond milk, toast with like spreads, not like, maybe avoid the jams and stuff, like peanut butter and Vegemite might be better just because it's lower sugar, but you'd want a piece of fruit there as well. And then if you've got a more midday sort of race and you've had breakfast that morning, maybe a light sandwich, just something that's easy to digest. Okay. But something's a slightly bigger meal, 2 to 3 hours, and you want to have about 1 to 2 liters a couple of hours before as well. Within 60 minutes. So again, this is going to be different based on when your race is, because if you're racing at 6:30 a.m. versus 12, you know, it makes a bit of a difference. But within 60 minutes, you could go, if you feel like something, just to top up with a piece of fruit and muesli bar and just water to sip. I wouldn't be sculling water at this point. I've done that before and I need to pee right before. Like I was in a wetsuit. No one noticed that I could warm myself up before the race. And then within a little typo there, within 15 minutes, if you want, and you got to time this right as well, because there's often these big delays before you actually go. One of those energy gels, like the sugar ones, if you've done it before. I have like 10 to 15 minutes. I'll have it's like a High Five is the brand, but you can get like GU gels. It's about 20 grams of just sugar beforehand. But you want to time that. I thought my race was meant to start at 6:30 one race, and it was like we didn't actually start till 7 a.m. because there was all these heats, so I had it way too early, and it was just, yeah, not ideal. So yeah, that's something you can do if you feel it's necessary. During though, this is more relevant for the longer distance ones, but basically like the overall goal is you do want to be consuming about 60 grams of carbs every hour of the event. Okay. Now, the shorter the event, the easier it is to get away with these quite sugary just gels. But the longer the event, it's harder to have those really sugary, high GI gels, and you've got to get a bit more complex on, you know, bars, gels that have complex carbohydrates and fruits and different types of carbohydrates, and then drinks and electrolytes and that sort of stuff. Okay. But because you're looking at what can happen is if you're giving yourself heaps and heaps of sugar all the time for a long distance event, you get these sugar highs and then lows, and you'll just burn out. But if you're doing a shorter distance event, you can get away with it. Stay hydrated, not stay hydrates, apologies. So if you sweat a lot, really, like, hydration's so important. Why it's so important as well for these events is your aerobic system, so your heart wants to pump out oxygenated blood to the working muscles to keep them ticking over. Now, the power at which your heart can pump out blood to the working muscle is a lot based on, it's called this Frank-Starling equation, and it's a mechanical reflex from the heart to pump out blood to the body. Now, if you've got heaps, if you're well hydrated, your plasma volumes, or the volume of water in your blood, is much higher, and it will help eject a greater powerful pump from the heart and get more oxygenated blood to the working muscles. So that's really all about being hydrated. So if you get quite dehydrated, it's really important to have like a hydrolyte. High Five is one that's like a sports version of it. You can get it from that triathlon store in the city, Fast Gear, or you can order them online. If you want to try some, I've got a stack in my locker up at the gym. Happy to let you try one. And it's just like a tablet you put in the water, and it's basically like salt. Okay, because that will help retain water and avoid sweating out too much. Okay. Longer distance events, guys, yeah, you need more carbs and bars, like Cliff bars and these other types of bars, so you don't get that hypoglycemic effect. Okay. But again, like, make sure you test these out beforehand. If you want more info, guys, happy to send you some stuff. The other thing that's really important, guys, is recovery, especially if it's the first time you're doing it, or if you are getting to higher training volumes for you to have that capacity recovery between sessions. And I like to think of two types of recovery. A lot of people will classically think of muscle recovery. So that's your stretching and foam rolling so that the muscles are moving better through training and on race day. Okay. So stretching, foam rolling, I like to do 5 minutes per day just on the tight spot. So if I do have something that's niggling all the time, like my lats with swimming get super tight, and my hip flexors with running. So just 5 minutes a day of that, nice and consistent. But I do like to put aside a 30-minute session a week of a dedicated stretch. The favorite group class I used to take here was Revive, because it was my 30 minutes of stretching, and my manager paid me for it, so it was awesome. Now I do it on Sundays, and Arby and Ashley get to do the stretching classes here on a Monday, Wednesday evening. But super important, you are putting time. It should be a training session for you of 30 minutes stretching. It also helps if you can practice the deep breathing. It helps to just restore your whole nervous system, a dedicated time just to recover, okay? So that's muscle recovery. So foam rolling, stretching, massage as well. That's another one. But then there's the metabolic recovery. So that's all around your energy systems and your body refueling itself. Okay. So that's sleep, really important, getting 7.5 hours of sleep, and quality sleep. So trying to not have caffeine too close to bed. If you're drinking alcohol close to bed, then it's going to disturb your sleep patterns, and you're going to get a less efficient sleep, and it will affect you longer term with what you can get out of training and racing. Okay. And then it's energy requirements being met with your nutrition, especially around training time. So making sure, like, some of the sessions that you might be doing, especially if it's sport performance rather than necessarily weight loss, you want to have energy for your sessions. You don't necessarily want to be running on an empty tank, especially for a higher intensity in session. Now, this contradicts a lot of stuff around weight loss, but you got to remember, on these types of training plans, it's a different goal. Doesn't mean you can't have weight loss as well. It just does get a bit more complex. Because if you're going to get through a really high intensity session, if that's what you're doing, where you're driving your heart rate up, you're going to need sugar to help you get the heart rate up to that level. Okay. And then post workout, you want to top up those carbs and those proteins straight away. Okay. Because what you need is your muscle to uptake all that carbohydrate, sugars, proteins, so that it's ready to perform for the next session. Okay. If your primary goal is weight loss, then it's fine. This comes secondary. But if your primary goal is this, things change a bit. Okay. But energy requirements, it will vary depending on the type of session too. If you're doing a long steady state ride where you keep your energy levels pretty steady, or a long cruisy run, you can get away with fasted sessions, because your energy, you're never going to spike the energy demands or your heart rate. It's staying at a reasonably low level. So you could do that fasted, but it does get a bit more complex. Okay. So muscle recovery, metabolic recovery, I like to think about those two things. One's your stretching, rolling, massage, and then metabolic recovery is more your sleep and nutrition. Alrighty. Last but not least, most importantly, have fun. Guys, when I did my first triathlon, I fell in love with the sport. It was so much fun. I did it with some mates, and I was very grateful they made me do it. This is the absolute most important thing, and I am super proud of our community, and seeing you guys get behind it and giving it a crack. I was bloody shit scared on my first one, and I loved it. And yeah, it's really cool. It's an awesome, fun day. Like, you know, there's crowds and there's events and all this sort of stuff. It's an excuse to get out of Sydney every so often. So I absolutely love it. I have a lot of fun, and I'm super excited to see you guys jumping in there. And when we do it, we can go for a lunch, have some drinks, celebrate as we always do so very well at Vision Bondi. But guys, that wraps it up. Thank you so much for joining. You're welcome to unmute yourself, guys. If you do have specific questions and you're on here, then feel free to ask away. Or if you've been listening online and you want to throw it in the chat, more than happy to answer. And I'm happy to get back to you as well. If there's anything more specific for yourselves, then we can go through it. We've got about 3 weeks. I'm pumped for the event, and yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you all there. Cindy, how's the Try Hard team looking?
Yeah, we're looking good. We've booked our accommodation.
Beautiful. Where are you staying?
It's called the Harp.
The Heart.
The Harp. It's
The
above
Heart.
it. Yeah, next to the Dina. It's apparently got a nightclub downstairs.
Oh my goodness. Well, lucky it's Anzac Day on the Monday, but you actually, my number one recommendation is to not go out the night before the triathlon. That will make it a painful experience.
Yeah.
Susan, you're registered. You've got a bike. Have you been out on it just yet?
Not yet. I need to start.
Sorry, Susan.
I've had 2 rides around Centennial Park, but yeah, so if the weather would clear up, I will have more.
Okay, nice.
But I'm worried about how I'm going to go, like, in crowds and with other people riding around me, and that will make me feel wobbly, I think.
Yeah, look, one thing is, so the reason they do have cutoffs for these events, and that is for one of the reasons, because safety is absolutely number one with this. So what you'll notice, the swim, there's lifeguards everywhere. The cycle, there's actually rules where you can't be too close to people, otherwise they get penalized. So, and they're there to help and support, especially with like the super sprint, the try. They know people, it's the first time, and they're really supportive, super, like, so, you know, if you can get out for a couple of runs, and just take your time. It's a very well-run event. It's super professional. You don't have anything to worry about. But I think getting a couple of practice rides is definitely the best thing to do. I reckon actually Centennial Park, if you can ride at Centennial Park through those crowds, you can ride anywhere. Yeah.
Also, how do you get dressed when you've got out of the water?
Yeah.
How do you put shoes on wet feet? Or is there, like, do you line them up with powder or something? I don't know.
Yeah, so what I do, so I've got like a triathlon suit that I use, but it's whatever, look, because you do want some padding in, you can get actually just the shorts and then whatever you're comfortable wearing, but 2XU, really good. They've got good triathlon suits. So you got the padding in the triathlon suit. For the shoes, right, you can get triathlon socks, or that running socks. They're from Stegen is the brand. Athlete's Foot have got them. Fast Gear have got them as well. So you can put socks on and then shoes, and just take your time. Alternatively, if you don't want to wear socks, I put Vaseline all over my feet. So you put Vaseline in your shoes, okay? And I cover my feet in Vaseline, and I don't, for the shorter distance ones, so for my cycle and run on the standard, I don't wear socks. I just have my feet in Vaseline. But the long distance one, I definitely wear socks, but I put the socks on after the cycle.
Oh.
Yeah, but just take your time. Again, if you're going to do stuff like that, make sure you practice it first, because you don't want to wind up like halfway through the run with a massive blister. Yeah. Oh, and Steve, what about yourself? Have you registered yet?
No, not yet. I'm planning on doing that today.
Excellent.
I have my bike. I went for a bike ride last weekend and hopefully get another one in, but I haven't done any running. Sorry, I haven't done any swimming. Oh,
that's all right. You'll be fine on the swim. Are you going to do the sprint?
Yeah, I'm planning on doing the sprint.
Excellent. Yeah. No, it'll be good. Ski erg is I think the closest machine we've got to doing the swim, so you can have a go at that as well.
Yeah, I might try to get down to a pool this weekend.
Excellent. All right, guys. Any other questions? Sorry, what was that, Cindy?
I said, try and register first.
He's registering today. You heard it.
I've heard that.
Hi guys, thank you so much for joining. If you got more questions, just throw it on the chat. You can send me an email. Looking forward to our triathlon on the 24th of April.
Thanks, Max.
Thanks, guys. Catch you later.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.